It's news from heaven. Your thinking can move the whole heaven of angels. Just did it. You can learn how to. I'm sorry, it's a dumb way to start an episode. But what we're trying to do is not dumb at all. What we're trying to do is, fix life. Fix our mode of interaction with life. Because the way I see it, we've got a way of seeing life, and we go through life and we experience, like, there's events and people and things out here, but then there's also in here, there's interpretations and there's regrets and there's fears and there's disorganization and there's ego and evil. And so how can we break through that into, I'm sure you've had some lucid joy in your life. I know there's been times when things go good. Why isn't life like that? We got to figure out how life is connected to stuff. How our life is connected to heaven. Where's help going to come from if we're going to try to rescue this mess here? Really, the only system is heaven. And heaven is the Lord in people. So how are we going to tap into that? Well, we got to learn some about the nature of heaven and how that links up, how that neurolinks right in to our consciousness. This is from the very beginning. Or not the very beginning, but pretty close to the beginning of Swedenborg's Journal of Spiritual Experiences, number 335. So this is when a lot of stuff was new to him as well. But the mechanisms aren't new. The mechanisms are eternal. So let's see what we can pick up here. When the Psalms of David were read. This took me a while as I was first reading Swedenborg to understand. He's saying when I read the Psalms of David, but the way he's writing, taking the self out of it, when the Psalms of David were read. Also, okay, I'll finish the sentence. By popular demand. When the Psalms of David were read, they had such power in heaven that some heavenly angels were struck with amazement. Such power in these Psalms. Even these angels, man, you'd think if anyone was battle-hardened to amazing things. The heavenly angels struck with amazement. Now, I want to talk about the Psalms of David because you know what they are, do you? Some people, the Psalms of David, maybe Psalm 23, we did a show on that recently, other stuff in there, maybe some of the most treasured texts and spiritual tools that you have. Other people don't really know what they are. Other people have a negative relationship with the entirety of the Bible or just what? Why would you go to something like that? So here's the Psalms of David as a piece of text in the world. They can overwhelm, they can underwhelm. They just seem like some words, and they're in the Bible, so yeah, right. They get a pretty big platform. But if you just took them in a vacuum and put them up against a bunch of other spiritually minded poetry, would they stand out? Something about what's inside of them goes well beyond the words. And look at the impact that it's having. Heavenly angels were struck with amazement. And where do they have? Because it's not like here. If you walk into a room and read a Psalm of David, even some people might be struck with amazement that you just did it, but it doesn't have such power. The power is in heaven. So Swedenborg reading the Psalms of David is having power in heaven. We're starting to get into the link between heaven and us. Somehow we can, we're reading some Psalms of David. There's a connection that's that immediate. Maybe it was opened up more with Swedenborg. Maybe that's how it works for us. How would I know? Several Psalms of David were read, and indeed in such a way that the inward and more inward levels of meaning were conveyed by the mercy of God the Messiah to the perception of certain heavenly angels. Here's where we're getting our power. Because it's not just the Psalms. In these Psalms, there's an inward level. And if you saw this inward level and you were in an angelic frame of mind, maybe you would say, oh, that's something. Maybe you wouldn't be as puzzled as to what they are. Oh, for dramatic effect, they erased my whole point of it. Right? But even above that, so there are angels here, even angels who are just floored by this. And some people are floored by the text, but they're floored by this. But there's even above that, there's a whole nother layer that that even as more the order of magnitude greater power that this has, so it is in transferring here. So in this little bitty thing that you can access anytime, I'm not saying you always get access to these, but somehow enfolded in there is this amazing meaning. And what kind of meaning? Is it just the same kind of meaning that if you go to some kind of doctrinal class, and okay, I get what it means? This is like better than the best impact of the most artfully crafted movie you've ever seen, some kind of event that meant something to you. Look at how it affects them. They were so struck with amazement as to declare aloud that they had never believed, this is angels, by the way, had never believed such things were in them. Swedenborg is a little bit more fast and loose with his description of what the different categories of angels. So we don't know, are these good spirits? It's really not formed yet in the early parts of his Journal of Spiritual Experiences, but there's somebody good. But even they were like, I had no idea there was something this cool in there. They had never believed such things were in them, as did those who were dead in the life after death, because the word had similarly affected them. Wait a second. How are you going to be in the life after death, but you're dead? That must be a typo. We'll get to it. In order that the difference could be observed, the meaning of the word was brought to them just as it had been in their lifetime when the same things were read. And this was so different that they had seen in it hardly any heavenly life at all. So what we're not saying here is that, look, and I know you're saying, what about our thinking moving the heaven of angels? We're talking about the reading of part of the Bible moving the heavens of angels, but there's actually a couple numbers in sequence that are slightly related but not contiguous, so you are getting a little bit of a bonus thing here. However, this is about Swedenborg's thought following those, and how within it there are these layers going up. I'm not saying that you have to feel this amazing emotional connection with the text of the Bible. And I feel like I have this amazing spectrum of experiences with the Bible of a book. And only amazing in that there's such variation, because there are times, and I think it's a little less, it's more rare. There are times when I'm opening that book and reading something, and it's not necessarily even what the literal sense is saying, but the feeling that comes with it. Like when the thief beside Jesus says, today, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Certain parts of it, the last chapter of Revelation, where I just feel like this is gorgeous. There's something, it's whatever it's trying to say, there's something moving and gorgeous in it. But there's other times when I open it up and I just can barely stomach it. I just am abhorred. I abhor the narrative, what it's talking about, and it just seems morally very dubious and just evil at times. So I think, oh man, this is... And there's other times when I'm looking for, hey, I need some help. I'm coming to the word, but it's just nothing. It's just not doing much. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just nothing. So what we're not saying is, look, the Bible is always going to knock your socks off like it did to these angels. Because here it's saying, look, even these people who are good in their lifetime, it's so different. The internal sense of the word is so different. That the life in there, that the actual nature of God, once you start to get through the covering, the messages from God are in, it's so different. So whatever it is, it's so alive. And it's okay if you don't see any heavenly life in it. You will. The stuff that is actually good, like don't picture, I'm belaboring this longer than I need to, but don't picture, let's say you don't have a taste for the Bible or for reading it. You don't think, it's not like heaven is going to consist of doing stuff that feels, okay, this is not the most potent thing in life. This stuff, when you really get down to what's in the message from God, it is the most potent thing. It's not like, wow, I'll go and learn that spiritual stuff, but what really moves me is going on a roller coaster or or movies or podcasts or something. That what's in there is the most moving stuff. From all this, one may infer what kind of power there is in the word when God the Messiah mercifully enlivens it. And what kind when the letter is as if dead, as it is when read by the dead. So what is the dead? The dead is if you don't love goodness and truth. Even though you're still alive and functioning, Swedenborg calls that spiritual death. And if you don't care at all about loving the Lord and loving the neighbor, there's no chance you find anything interesting or valuable in the text. Okay. So that was 335. What's the next entry? That's the date. If you want a reference, what were you doing on that day? When enlightened knowledge of spiritual and heavenly matters, which is pure truth, is embraced by belief and thought in a human mind, it can delightfully move the whole heaven of angels. That's what we paid to see here. So let's take a second to dwell on this. What can you do for heaven? When enlightened knowledge of spiritual and heavenly matters, which is pure truth, is embraced by belief and thought in a human mind, it can delightfully move the whole heaven of angels. I still don't feel like I understand what I'm talking about. Let's break it up. Okay. Enlightened knowledge of spiritual and heavenly matters, which is pure truth. Oh, we'll extend it to there. Okay. So you've got that stuff that when you're really seeing the truth for what it is embraced by belief and thought in a human mind. It can delay. Okay, great. So it's just saying that's something that's out there. You've got the truth. Well, let's make the truth more like a little bit. Is that looking ominous now? What are we going to do? That's the core of it. Maybe it has like yellow shine coming out. There's the truth. And it's just dark because you can't understand it on the page. Perfect. Or maybe it's some kind of like precious stone. So it's out there. The human mind is here. When this is embraced and brought in, somehow our connection can move the whole heaven of angels. If this is the heaven of angels, like stars up there. The whole heaven of angels, somehow everything is so connected that not only does it move them, but delightfully. Like the heaven of angels is like, this is great. Somehow we're doing something great for heaven. Today I was taught by the mercy of God the Messiah that just the thoughts of heavenly truths move the angels. So if you're sitting there and you're figuring things out and you feel like you maybe from some stuff that you found in Swedenborg's message, if I may be so bold, something clicks for you and it's helping your life and you feel like this is really good. Angels are somehow you are funding, you're bankrolling their happiness in an ineffable manner. I'm not going to say we know how it happens. For the angelic heaven is on the path of truth, because there cannot be possibly be a truth that it leads to God the Messiah through belief, this being the source of the angels' pleasures and even happiness. Wow. So that's something. Okay, so first of all, heaven being on the path of truth. Okay, I won't redraw it, but if you say that, look, here's God here, and heaven is on the path. One way, it could just be a figure of speech, but one way that this is clicking in my mind right now is, look, truth extends out from God, it radiates out from God into the universe, and heaven exists along that truth. So for us to access truth, you're going through heaven, and us interacting with it comes back through. So there is, they're on the way. And there was something else that really struck me about. Oh, all truth leads to God through belief. All truth. I would say there's a lot of natural truth, so the way the universe works that doesn't on its own. But somehow, so maybe it's got to have a spiritual component to it. But all truth, what's the hallmark of truth? Every little thing, it's not just that a thing exists, it's that it points back to reality, which is God. That's cool. I mean, that's part of what is, you look for the stamp on every piece of truth that says God is, or something like that. Is that, to me, that seems cool. This being the source of the angels' pleasures and even happiness. Why are these angels happy in the first place? Is because everything in their mind is truth. So everything is pointing them at God, and God is happiness, or the best happiness distributor you can imagine. For those are angels who who is an angel? Who take delight together in the happiness of all, and long for the salvation of all. For this is the property of mercy and of love, and of pleasure and happiness, and it results in a sharing of happiness throughout the whole of heaven. Wow. I guess I'm easy to impress, but these are some very high-end sentences here. What is it to be an angel? You and I are trying to be angels. What's it like to be an angel? Okay, You take delight together in the happiness of all. What is it that makes us happy day to day? And what is it that excites us? Is it when we get ahead in some way? Is it when things turn out well for us individually? What is the microwave background, like the thing that's everywhere in the universe for our happiness? For angels, it is the happiness of everyone. The idea of everyone being happy, that's what pumps me up, which is so not how it is for us. I mean, I know that there's, if I'm feeling competitive with someone and they get more happy than I am, I don't feel happy. And if other people are unhappy, but I'm not really that connected to them, but it's not keeping me up at night. But we're taking the delight in the happiness of all and long for the salvation of all. You're an angel. You're already in heaven. You have the best living conditions that exist. Why would you get bent out of shape wanting other people to come in there? Won't that make what you have less special? It's an alien world. I mean, this is what the Lord is. That's what the Lord is, because the Lord is putting this into heaven, is saying, look, what do you want? You've got everything. What is it you want? I wish everyone had this. And other places in Swedenborg, he says, angels would gladly give up everything they have, long to give up everything they have for someone else to have it. And that's the actual treasure. And that's what makes heaven heaven. Because this is the property of mercy and of love and of pleasure and happiness, and results in a sharing of happiness throughout the whole heaven. Why is heaven so happy? The only way you can actually have heaven, have happiness that is communal and lasting and permanent and comes with peace and all that, is when it's doesn't have any insanity in it. And the idea that you can be excited about your own happiness but not care about the suffering of others, it seems normal because we're so used to it, but it's insanity. How could you? And the idea that you, knowing how much you want to be happy and want nice things, to not want the next person to have that, step back and examine it, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. I was taught these things by some who had felt that heavenly pleasure. At a moment when I was thinking heavenly truths, they then, as if awakened from a peaceful sleep, got a sense of their pleasantness, and gave witness to this and confirmed it to me aloud. There again, Swedenborg's thinking heavenly truths. Maybe you feel like you don't have a chance to have much of an impact for good. Maybe you feel like you're trying some things, but you don't know how much good you're doing. Your thoughts are doing good. Like you just dwelling on what's true and right, just being a repository or a habitat for that species of goodness and truth. Not only is it doing something for you, but I think it's going out. It's like anti-pollution in the spiritual world, that it is making things better. I don't know if that extends to us here, but it is making things better in the spiritual world. So as we think about that here, and you're moving through the daily mess, just remember the daily mess is trying to tell you, look, you are hopeless, life is competitive, this shouldn't have happened. All that isn't true. Because what is actual happiness consisting in? It's that heaven that we described, right? It's the longing for the salvation of all. You don't got to worry about where you score, because it's all going to end up where everybody loves you and wants you there, and you love everyone and want them there. That's where we're headed. So any of this stuff that's trying to say, what about this other trajectory you're on, or these other sides of life, they don't exist. They appear to exist. They exist temporarily, but where we're heading is this permanent, beautiful happiness, and you can contribute to it by thinking good thoughts. Not that you always have to be happy, and I've been unhappy even in the past few days, believe it or not. But when you are thinking good thoughts, when you are believing truths, when you're loving truths, when you're putting them into action, that is right now us contributing to heaven. And that's the news from heaven. Okay, I hope that seems like there's some tangible stuff in there. Take that out into the world. Be a little goodness and truth generator. Let me know in the comments if that works for you and how you're doing. Support our programming if you don't mind. Please go to otle.causevox.com. We have a match out right now, so you'll get matched 2 to 1. Anything you donate to making this kind of programming possible will go twice as far. Thanks everybody for watching. Man, that was pretty fun. I'll see you on the next wherever I see you. Maybe it's the next News from Heaven. Maybe it's another one of our videos. Maybe I'll see you at the grocery store. Probably not as likely since we're still on the yellow phase here of the lockdown from the pandemic. Remember that if you're watching this in a few years. Glad we're past that. See ya.